Do you have trouble falling asleep or do you wake up all the time throughout the night? No, this is not an infomercial. It is me explaining why this might happen based on what drugs you use. Today, I, Dr. Suave, your friendly neighborhood neuroscientist, am going to explain the effects of commonly used drugs on insomnia. So first, I'll talk about the nightcap because a lot of people drink to fall asleep. And to be fair, alcohol does help you fall asleep, but it does not help you stay asleep. So you commonly will wake up far more often during the night if you've had alcohol. And it also impairs REM sleep. So REM sleep is kind of that part of sleep that's most linked to things like dreaming, but also linked to things like helping with your memory. And what we see is that alcohol impairs REM sleep. Now, in terms of insomnia, what we see is that alcohol use disorder, so once that kind of drinking every once in a while becomes an addiction, that is very strongly linked to insomnia. So there's a case report of a man who was addicted to alcohol and had gone through alcohol withdrawal, so had actually quit and started having delirium tremens. So delirium tremens, or DTs, are a common symptom of alcohol withdrawal, which, by the way, can actually be fatal. So delirium tremens, or DTs as they're called, are the withdrawal symptoms that you're seeing. So this can include things like seizures, but also things like fever and shaking and hallucinations and extreme confusion. When this patient was going through DTs, they also basically slept and only stayed in stage one. So stage one is the stage in which you're like kind of falling asleep. So it's the stage where you have hypnic jerks, so where your body just like jerks awake, which are fantastic. We don't know why they exist, by the way. But this person was going through DTs and basically stayed in this stage their entire night. So alcohol withdrawal can induce some really problematic insomnia, which is one of the reasons that people keep drinking after they've quit, because they just don't want to go through those withdrawal symptoms. Also, fun fact, the symptoms of insomnia that exist once you've quit alcohol can last for up to 3 years in some cases. So you're messing up your sleep for a while. So that's alcohol. Let's talk about some of the other drugs. So blow has some very strange effects on insomnia as well. So basically, when people are coming down from blow, they say that they have hypersomnia. So basically, they just sleep all the time. So they kind of have that increase in energy when they're taking the drug. And then as soon as they stop taking it, they come down and sleep a lot. Now, the thing is, they say that this sleep is great. And what we found is that, yeah, no, it isn't. They've actually created a term for this called occult insomnia, which is another great band name, which is basically saying like people who are on blow think that they're getting great sleep after they're coming down, but in fact they're not. So they self-report that they're getting great sleep, but actually they are experiencing insomnia and lessened sleep quality. So like they're kind of lying to themselves. Now, what about crystal? Unsurprisingly, crystal really messes up your sleep. So a lot of people on crystal have severe insomnia, but weirdly, they develop a tolerance to the insomnia. So after they've used it for long enough, basically their body starts to be like, no, okay, you need some sleep. And so they actually have less insomnia over time. Why? We have no idea. The joys of neuroscience. Also, perhaps unsurprisingly, if someone quits crystal, they just sleep a lot, making up for lost time. Now, side note, because I just like talking about sleep, this is one of the areas that I've actually studied. Sleep debt, so trying to make up for the time that you lost. So if you spend a week not sleeping, sleeping more is not actually going to make up for any of those problems of the sleep debt that you had that last week. Sorry. Now, what about nicotine? We see that both vaping and smoking are risk factors for insomnia, and that's about all we have. We don't know if people have worse insomnia because they're vaping or they're vaping because they have worse insomnia. And this is the common problem that you see with things like caffeine too. Yeah, caffeine is linked to insomnia. But are you drinking to counteract those effects of insomnia? So you're counteracting the sleep deprivation, or are you actually creating the insomnia by having the caffeine? That's a relationship we can't really pull apart that easily. Also, fun fact, caffeine increases, quote, worrying at night. There is literally a symptom in which people are just worrying before they fall asleep, which I thought was only a me thing, so I'm kind of glad it's in the scientific literature. It might be a you thing too. Night anxiety people unite. Now, you might think that opioids will help with insomnia because they like make people nod off, like people just become more tired when they're on it. But in actuality, it does not. It is also linked to long-term insomnia. And that's true of benzos too. So we actually use benzos to treat insomnia, but it seems like long-term benzo use is actually very problematic for insomnia. So the thing that you're taking to try to treat it is actually making the problem worse. Gotta love how that works. Now, what about hallucinogens? We don't know. There's basically been nothing on it, which suggests that there might not be an effect, or just literally nobody is studying hallucinogens in sleep. There was like one study that said that, yeah, people who use hallucinogens typically report that they have insomnia, but that could just be that people who are using hallucinogens are more likely to have insomnia, which fits with my vibe of people who are using hallucinogens. Now, in some good news, it seems like weed might actually help with insomnia. And they've actually studied different strains here. So they looked at like indica dominant versus sativa dominant versus hybrid versus CBD dominant. And they found that for most people, they pretty much work the same, except for people who have depression. So we see that a lot of people who have depression and a lot of people who have anxiety also have insomnia. But it seems like the depression insomnia and the anxiety insomnia are actually different from one another. So people who had the anxiety insomnia reported that all strains work equally, but the people with depression insomnia said that basically the CBD dominant strains did not work at all. So there might be something going on there, but we don't know. And also trying to study different strains is kind of a mess. Like, to do research in the United States on weed, you basically have to use the one strain that is basically grown for you. They've relaxed the restrictions on this a little bit, but still, it is like one thing. You're not getting what's out there in the stores. So in your TLDR, alcohol seems to help with insomnia, but doesn't actually. Blow and crystal don't seem to help with insomnia, and shockingly don't. Same with nicotine and caffeine. Opioids and benzos might for a short time, but for a long term, they're bad. Hallucinogens don't seem to do much of anything, and weed might help. So before you have that late night shower beer or vape just a little bit before you fall asleep, think about what I might actually be doing. Protect your sleep.